Okay, this is it. We made it to the end of chapter 2. This is section 2.5. Let's do this. So section 2.5 is the big, why do I need to know this, Mr. Armstrong? And the reason why is because usually when we take surveys, from surveys we can do a lot with that, especially when you take statistics. If you ever plan on taking statistics with me, I do teach it occasionally, usually in the summers. But this is big for statistics because it allows us as a way to display our data in Venn diagrams and organize it into something that's a little bit easier to read and manage. Again, Venn diagrams is just one way to deal with statistical information. But generally, whenever we form surveys and we take surveys of people, we can make Venn diagrams based off of that information and what we know about the results of those surveys. So that's what 2.5 is all about. You're going to be getting word problems. It's all word problems, but don't freak out. They're all Venn diagram word problems, and I'm going to show you how to deal with these. And basically, you're going to organize the information into a Venn diagram and then answer some questions about it. So the first thing you have to do for these is you have to make a Venn diagram. Okay, it's going to make things so much easier for you. And this is the section where you need a calculator. And the only thing that we're going to be doing with this calculator is adding and subtracting. All right. So the first thing is we read this. It says a survey of 120 college students was taken at registration. Of those surveyed, 75 students registered for a math course. 65 registered for an English course, and 40 registered for both math and English. So, based off of this, how many ideas are we talking about up here? And if you paid attention, there are really only two ideas. We're talking about students that registered for math and students that registered for English. So we only have two circles. We have a math circle, and we have an English circle. And then, of course, out here we have our universe. So, when dealing with this, again, just like what we talked about with everything else, we're going to start right here in the middle. Okay? So, when I start in the middle, that means I need to know about both math and English. And when you guys do these problems, the very last sentence here is about both. Okay, so we know that 40 registered for both math and English. So I'm going to put that 40 right here in the middle. And that is the only number up here that we can trust. All these other numbers, 120, 75, and 65, are going to change. The only one that you can trust is the one that you put in the very middle, 40 for both math and English. That's the only one that we can trust. And since we have taken care of that, that number is now gone. That sentence is now gone. I cross it off. But that 40 is the only number that we can take for as it is. Everything else that's going to go in here, whatever's left in math, whatever's left in English, whatever's in the universe, are going to be part of these numbers that are up here. So let's start talking about what I mean by that. So we have 40 students taken care of already. Let's talk about how many are just in math. So if we come up here, it says 75 students registered for math. All right. Now you cannot go down here and put 75 here. That is incorrect. What that 75 is that means that 75 students exist in this entire red circle. This entire red circle should total to 75. So, in essence, what I'm saying is we already have 40 students taken care of this 75. How many are left? We'll take 75 minus 40, and you get 35. That's how many students enrolled in just math. Because 35 and 40 give you 75. See how I said that you were not really going to use that 75? Technically, this number does not exist there. But between these two numbers, it totals up to 75, which represents the 75 that registered for math. So we cross that off. We're done. And now we repeat the same process over here in English. Again, it said up above, I believe it was 65. Yes, 65 for an English course. So inside this green circle, between the 40 and whatever's in here, that has to add up to 65. Okay? Because the entire green circle should be 65 students. Well, 65 minus 40 gives you 25. So see how if I take the 40 and the 25, that gives me 65. Again, you can't trust the 65 the way it is. You have to do a little manipulation to it. Okay? Now, down here, in the universe, it said we had 120 students we talked to. All right? Again, you can't trust that number. The universe is made up of 120 students. But again, we've already taken care of some of them. So out here is not 120, but 120 minus 35 minus 40 minus 25. That's how many students are going to be left out here, because not everybody signs up for math and English. Okay? So these are the students that are going to exist out here. So again, how do I figure these students out? I've got to take care of these, add them all up, and then subtract it from that 120. So we take 35 plus 40 plus 25. So inside here, between these three numbers, that's 100 students. So how many are left out in the universe? Well, 120 minus 100 is 20. So see how the only number from up above that we are left with, the one that we kept from the very beginning, was 40. All these other three numbers, they don't exist down here as that number, but they do exist if you combine. So if I take 35 plus 40 plus 25 plus 20, that's 120. That was the universe that they talked about up there. If I take the 35 plus 40, those are all the students that enrolled in math. If I take the 40 plus the 25, those are all the students that enrolled in English. Okay? So the only number, again, that you can trust is the one that's right in the middle. Everybody else, you have to start subtracting from it because you've already taken care of some of those students. Okay? So now all we have to do is answer the questions up above. So let's do that. So it says, how many registered only for math? Well, that's our 35 right here. These are the students who only did math. How many registered for only English? Well, only English is right here, and that's 25. We don't touch the middle number because those are the ones that did both English and math. Okay? So you don't touch that. This one right here, something I want you to be aware of, this word or. That word or is one of our terminologies that we had back in 2.3. It's either a complement, a union, or an intersection. So whenever you see the word or, I want you thinking union. So what they're asking is, how many students are in the union of math and English? Okay? So the union means that everybody in math and everybody in English are invited along. So to get this answer, we got to take 35 plus 40 plus 25 because that's the union, because those are the numbers in all of my circles. So 35 plus 40 plus 25 is 100. So there's how many registered for math or English. And last but not least, how many did not register for math or English? So not, again, it's one of our special words. I want you thinking not as the complement. So they want the complement of the union, because there's that or again, right? So what is the complement of the union? Well, remember, we did all these numbers in here, as the union. So what's the complement of that? I want everybody but these numbers. So that's 20. That's the universe. That's what they were asking about in D. They want to know how many students are not in math or English. And that's 20. Okay? So the idea is get your Venn diagram, and then you use your Venn diagram to answer some questions. Okay? So, your turn. Go. Actually, I don't want this problem yet. Is it really time for that one? I feel like I'm missing one. Yeah, here we go. Try this problem and go. Okay, so hopefully when you drew your Venn diagram, I'm going to adjust my picture here for a second. It looks like this. So when you draw your Venn diagram, you have two circles in this one. One is about newspapers. The other one is about television. And let's make that end green to match. And then we had this universe. Okay? So, filling in what we know. Well, this is the only number we can trust right here. 7 from both newspapers and television. So that's what they both have in common. So right in here in the middle is the number 7. Everybody else, all these other numbers up here, the 29, the 43, and the 75, are going to change because of that. Okay? So in here, this is, and that shouldn't be a T, that should be an N. Silly me. All right. So in here is only newspaper. So we know that we've already used that. 29 got it from the newspaper. Okay? So again, we've already taken care of 7. So 29 minus 7 gives us 22. So if you look here, 22 and 7, that gives us the 29 that represented the N of 29 students getting it from newspapers. The other circle has this 43 in it. But again, you've already taken care of 7. So 43 minus 7 gives you 36. So 36 students get just the news from television. And last but not least, we talked to 75 students. But obviously, not every student gets their information from newspapers or television. So we add all this up and subtract it from 75. Okay? Because we want to know how many are left in the universe. So 75, or actually 22 plus 7 plus 36. So all this in here adds up to 65. So 75 minus 65 give you 10. There were 10 students who get their news some other way. Okay? All right. So let's start answering our question. So how many got the news only from newspapers? Well, only from newspapers was right there, 22. How many got the news from only television? And only television is right here. Oh, there's that word or, so that I know I'm talking about a union. So we want the union between newspapers and television. So that means we're going to take the 22, the 7, and the 36 and add it all up because that's the union between these two sets. Okay? So take 22 plus 7 plus 36 because that's the union again. So there is 65 there. 65 students got their news from newspapers or the television. Okay? Add all three of those up. And the last one, there's that not, which represents complement. There's that or, union. So I want the complement of the union. So again, this was the union. How many students are not in the union? 10. So again, this last one, just like what we had a second ago on that previous problem, it wanted to know how many students were in the universe. That's what D was about. Okay? So again, not meant complement or meant union. All right? And there we go. I got two more problems because now we've dealt with problems where there were two circles. Now we want to deal with problems. What happens if there are three circles? So this is as hard as what 2.5 gets. Okay? And you might even see this problem somewhere later on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, fireworks in the air. All right. So in this one, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to develop our Venn diagram. So up here it says that a survey of 80 college students was taken to determine the music styles they listened to. 42 students listened to rock, 34 to classical, 27 to jazz. 12 students listened to rock and jazz, 14 to rock and classical, and 10 to classical and jazz. 7 students listened to all three musical styles. All right, so again, that's a lot of information. A Venn diagram will make all of this clear, I promise you. So again, we have three ideas we're talking about. We're talking about rock, classical, and jazz. So that's how I know this is a three-circle Venn diagram. All right, so let's make our Venn diagram. And then we will answer some questions. I should probably do that in black. Let's highlight that. Let's make that black. Line style, black. There we go. All right. So we know that this is the universe. And then I'm going to make my rock circle, my jazz circle, my classical circle. And again, it doesn't really matter which circle is which, okay? Just as long as you know which one is which. Okay, so I could have said this is rock, then classical, then jazz. It doesn't really matter. I could have classical, rock, and then jazz down here. Either way, it's all going to work. And again, just as what we did with everything else, we're going to start right here in the middle. This is the only number that we're going to be able to trust up above. So right here, we need to know who did all three. How many, actually, not who. So it says right here, 7 students listened to all three musical styles. So we're going to put a 7 right here in the middle. Okay? Now we work right here. So this is just rock and jazz. Okay? But remember, we've already taken care of 7 of them. So it says rock and jazz right here. 12 students listen to rock and jazz. All right. So I'm going to take that number out. And I'm going to kind of color code this for you. So 12 students listen to rock and jazz. All right. So again, I've already accounted for 7 of these 12 because in this little football shape here, in this green and red, this should encompass 12 students. But we've already taken care of 7. So 12 minus 7, 5 go right there. Because 7 plus 5 is 12. Okay? All right. So now we're going to do the next one right here. This is jazz and classical. All right. Jazz and classical right here. Jazz and classical. They said that was 10 students. So I'm going to cross that out. So in here, in the green and the blue, should total up to 10 students. So we've already taken care of 7. So 10 minus 7 is 3. See, 7 plus 10 is 3 for my circle right here between green and blue. And then my red and green, remember that was 12. Okay. So everything still follows. And last but not least, we got rock and classical. That was 14. So in my red and blue circle right here, this should add up to 14. But we've already taken care of 7. So 14 minus 7 is 7. So now we've taken care of the inside. And now we're going to start to move to the outside. So now we want to know how many students are just rock. All right. So up here, we know that rock was 42 students listened to rock. So again, my entire red circle must be 42 students. but we've already taken care of some there. We have 7, 7, and 5. So if I take the 7 plus the 7 plus the 5, that's 19. Okay? So 42 minus 19 tells us that there are 23 rock students. And we continue the same process. So the next one is jazz. It says 27, listen to jazz. Okay. So my entire green circle has to be 27. But we've already got 5, 7, and 3 taken care of. So 7 plus 3 plus 5 is 15. Is 15. And again, this was supposed to be, I forgot the number again, 27. So we've already taken care of 15 students here. So 27 minus 15 gives us 12, just in jazz. Down here, this is classical. So up here it says classical is 34. So again, my entire blue circle must add up to 34. But we've already taken care of 7, 7, and 3. So 7 plus 3 is 17. And again, I lost my number. 34. So 34 minus 17. There are 17 just classical students. Okay? Now we're not done. Obviously, rock, jazz, and classical are not the only musical styles out there. So the question is, do we have any students in the universe that don't listen to any of those? Well, we know that we talked to 80 students. So we've already taken care of some of those students. So out here, all these numbers, if there are any out here, must add up to 80. So let's add up all these numbers and see if that is 80. If it is, then there's no one in the universe. But if this is not 80, then we have some students in the universe. So let's figure that out. So we're going to take 23 plus 5 plus 12 plus 7 plus 7 plus 3 plus 17. So adding that all up again, just using my handy dandy calculator that I have right beside me, that all adds up to 74. Okay? So since that's not 80, that means I have some students out here. 80 minus 74 gives us 6 students that didn't listen to any of those styles. Now that we have the Venn diagram, we can now answer the questions. Okay? And again, the only number that we could trust in here was the 7 from the very beginning. Notice none of the other numbers in here are the same numbers are up here. But these numbers that are up here do exist down there when you add up some of them. All right, so let's answer questions. Because that's the hard part, getting your Venn diagram. Now it's all the easy stuff. All right, so A says, how many listen to rock only? Well, that's right there. That's the 23. Only 23 students like rock. Okay? Now, the next two questions, these things look similar to each other, but the only thing that's changed is one item right here, and an or. Okay? Let me talk to you about what and means. And is when we want to do an intersection. So and means intersection. So we want the intersection of classical and jazz. Okay, so let's look at that. Here's jazz and classical. So the intersection is right here. It's this 7 and 3. Okay, that's the true intersection. But it gave us an extra stipulation. Right here it says not rock. So that means they want us to throw out between the 7 and the 3 any number that has rock in it. And the number that has rock is the 7. See how the 7 is in my rock circle. Okay? So we have, between these two numbers, we throw out the 7. So the answer to this is, how many listen to classical and jazz, but not rock, is 3. Because again, the intersection between classical and jazz is the 7 and the 3. But we had to throw the 7 out because we don't want rock. And these students listen to rock. So the final answer for that guy is 3. C is just like this, what we just did a second ago. Although in this time it says, give me the union of classical and jazz. So that means we've got all these numbers that are in the green and the blue. So we got 7, 7, 5, 12, 3, and 17. Because all 6 of these numbers are inside those circles. But they want you to throw out the rock. So when I look at the 7, 7, 5, 12, 3, and 17, which numbers include rock? That's these 3 right here. So 7, 7, and 5 get thrown out because even though they are classical and jazz in here, we don't like them because they're inside the rock circle. So the only numbers that we're really dealing with are the 12, the 3, and the 17 because these 3 got thrown out because they like rock. We don't like them. So if we take 17 plus 3 plus 12, that gives us a total of 32. So 32 students listen to classical or jazz, but no rock. And again, how we got the 32 is we just added 17, 3, and 12. All right. So now the next one says, how many listen to exactly one musical style? So exactly one. So what they're meaning there is they listen to one and no other ones. So you actually have 3 numbers to consider here. You've got the 23 because these are the students that listen to only rock. You've got the 12 because those are the students that only listen to jazz. And you have the 17 because these are the only students that listen to classical. So these sections right here, the 23, the 12, and the 17, these are the students that listen to exactly one musical style. And if you add up the 23, the 12, and the 17, that gives you 52. The next one says how many listen to at least 2 musical styles. Okay, so at least 2. You got to be careful on that one. At least 2 means that I can listen to 2 musical styles. I can listen to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. Okay, so when we look at this, we want any student that listens to basically 2 or more musical styles. That's what at least means. You start with 2 styles, and then you can be more than that. So the ones that listen to 2 styles are the 7, the 5, and the 3. Because the 7 right here, they listen to rock and classical. The 5 right here is rock and jazz. The 3 right here is jazz and classical. So the 7, the 5, and the 3, those are 2 musical styles. But remember, we could be more than that. So we can also include the 7 in the middle. Because the 7 in the middle, these are the students that listen to all 3 of them. And those are the only numbers that we care about. The 7, the 5, and the 3, because those are 2 styles. And the 7 in the middle, because that's 3 styles. And if you add all those up, that's a total of 22 students that listen to at least 2 or more musical styles. And then finally, the last question, hopefully this seems familiar. How many do not, so complement, listen to any musical styles? Okay? So how many students do not listen to these? Well, that's our universe. It's right there. Final answer is 6. See, not that crazy. You just got to watch out for some of that wording. Remember, ands mean intersection, not means complement, or is a union. Okay? So I got one last problem. Go ahead, try this on your own, and see how well you do. Okay. So let's get this Venn diagram up here first. So I'm going to scroll down. Again, we have 3 circles, 3 items. All right, so let's figure out what these 3 items are. So it says a survey of 180 college men was taken to determine participation in various campus activities. 43 students were in fraternities, 52 participated in campus sports, 35 participated in various campus tutorial programs. 13 students participated in fraternities and sports, 14 in sports and tutorials, 12 in fraternities and tutorials, and finally, 5 students participated in all 3. All right, so we have frats, sports, tutoring, and of course we have the universe. So again, we start in the very, very middle. So in the very middle, 5 students participated in all 3 of these. Perfect. Oops. Scroll down for me, buddy. So we got a 5 here. And then now we start building out from there. So this guy's going to be about fraternities and sports. So up here, it says fraternities and sports. Right here, 13 students participated in fraternities and sports. So I'm going to cross that out. So that's 13. But again, we've already taken care of 5. So 13 minus 5 gives us 8. Again, 5 plus 8 is 13. So that number is still represented there. So we got 8 that do fraternities and sports only. Okay. The next one that we want to deal with right here is tutorial and sports. So if we come up here, tutorial and sports, that was 14. Cross that off because we're done with it. So again, between these 2 pieces right here, hold on, I'll get there. Just my stuff is kind of a neat freak. Oh my gosh. 3rd time's a charm. There we go. So, and I forgot the number. Of course I did. 14. So between these 2 circles, it should be 14. So 14 minus 5 gives us 9. Okay. So 9 participated in sports and tutorials. And last, fraternities and tutorials. So fraternities and tutorials was 12. So we've already gotten 5 taken care of. So 12 minus 5 is 7. So there we go for that inside piece. And now we're going to start working on how many are only in fraternities, sports, and tutorials. Okay? So fraternities, it says that we have 43 in fraternities. But again, we already have some of those taken up. So 7 plus 5 plus 8 gives us 20. But again, this whole circle has to be 43. So 43 minus 20, there are 23 students in nothing but fraternities. Okay? Just to make sure that was 43, right? Yep. All right. Over here is sports. So it said that there are 52 in sports. Okay? But again, we already have the 8, the 5, and the 9. So 9 plus 8 plus 5, that's 22, minus 52 gives us 30. So there were 30 students in nothing but sports. And finally, tutorial programs. There were a total of 35 in various tutorials. But again, we already have 7, 5, and 9 taken care of. So 7 plus 5 plus 9 is 21. And we're subtracting that from 35. Pretty sure it was 35, making sure. Yep, 35. So there are 14 students who did nothing but tutorials. Okay? So last but not least, do we have any students in the universe that didn't do any of this? Okay? Well, in the end, we talked to a total of 180 college men. So if this does not add up to 180, then that means, stop it. If this does not add up to 180, then that means we have people in the universe. So let's add it all up. 23 plus 8 plus 30 plus 7 plus 5 plus 9 plus 14. So this all adds up to 96. We talked to 120 people. Was it 120? 180. I about messed that up. So obviously we have some individuals out here. So if we take 180 minus 96, there are 84 students in the universe. that didn't do fraternity, sports, or tutorials. Okay? So all we got to do now, hard part's done, is answer some questions. So how many participated in only sports? Well, that's right there. That's our 30. Again, B and C are just like those questions we had a moment ago. We've got an and a not. So we want to know the intersection between fraternities and sports. Well, that's the 5 and the 8. That's the intersection. But we're throwing out tutorial. So that means we throw out the 5. So how many students participated in fraternities and sports but not tutorial? That's the 8. So again, we've got or this time and then the not. So how many participated in fraternities or sports but not tutorial? So or again means union. So the union would be the 9, the 5, the 7, the 23, the 8, and the 30. So all 6 of these numbers right there. But again, we got to throw out any tutorial numbers. And that's the 7, the 5, and the 9. So these numbers get thrown out. So in the end, all we have to do is add the 23, the 8, and the 30. Add up these 3 numbers right there. And that gives us 61. Okay? All right, so dealing with the rest of these real quick. How many participated in exactly 1? Well, we're going to take the 23 plus the 30 plus the 14. Because the 23, these are only fraternities. 30 is only sports. The 14 is only tutorial. And if you add all those up, you get 67. Next one says, how many participated in at least 2? You've seen that question before. So the 7, the 8, and the 9, those are at least 2 activities. So if I take the 7 plus the 8 plus the 9, I get 24. But remember, the at least means I can do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. So I need to take that 24 and add the 5 onto it because they participated in 3 activities. And so that gives us 29 students that did at least 2 activities. And last but not least, here's a not. How many did not participate in any? And that's our universe, 84. Word of advice when you're doing these, you got to make sure that your Venn diagram down here is accurate. If this Venn diagram gets messed up, it will throw your numbers up here off. So you have to be very, very careful with your Venn diagram. Again, if you have trouble dealing with these kind of problems, because sometimes the students get tripped up on this, please email me, text me, call me. We can have a Zoom session, come to our Zoom meetings. We can work through it. But with that being said, this ends Chapter 2. So you have everything that you need to know about Venn diagrams. Enjoy and good luck.